Guys, we have a really good last question that I wanted to save for the show, and this last question comes from a Leon Green, and Gray, excuse me. He writes, "Hey Alex, with the recent news of the Snyder Cut, do you think that directors should go back and re-edit films that came out years ago because of the theatrical cut? The theatrical cut did not fit their vision." Thank you for your question, Leon. We actually kind of touched on this last time we did a video about the Snyder Cut, and basically we were just saying, like, I'll repeat what I said in the last video. I said, so are we gonna get the director's cut of Suicide Squad? Are we gonna get the director's cut of Birds of Prey? Funny thing, after we put out that video, there is a news clipping of David Ayer wanting his division of the Suicide Squad. And we shared, and we have this group me were part of, we shared it and we just started laughing about it. And, now that I think about it, as a director myself, we all want to see our vision played out when we're directing a film of any kind, right? But the problem is that when you're working for a studio, the studio has the final say in the scenes that are being put out in the movies. That's just the reality. Like, directors don't have much say when it comes to how trailers are being cut. Unless you're Christopher Nolan or Steven Spielberg, you don't really have much say. You really don't. I can tell you that a lot of Marvel films had studio interference. Even though those movies are great, not a lot of those movies, like we think, were a full vision of the directors. This all comes down to ownership. When you're an independent director, you can direct and put out whatever you want. The only problem with that is that you don't have the capital like these studios do. So that's the thing. So as a director, yes, I think we should definitely have the opportunity to put out what we've put out, our vision on screen. However, I disagree with the notion of going back to films that came out years ago and try to recut and re-edit them. That's the reason why when they get released on DVD, there's a director's cut, there's an extended cut, there's all this other stuff. So to then go back, like, that's why I disagree with David Ayer when he says, oh, well, I want to go back and redo Suicide Squad in my vision. I feel you as a creative, but I don't really care to see that. I think that there should have been a clause in your contract that say, hey, if the theatrical cut is not my vision in the DVDs that we sell, we need to do a director's cut, or I'm not directing the project. That's simple. That's all you have to do. Not everyone gets that luxury, but Zack Snyder was able to do it with the Snyder Cut, Batman vs. Superman, and Watchmen. So if he's able to do it, it's definitely possible to do it. But Jeremy, what do you think about directors going back to re-edit films that have come out years ago and having their vision play out on screen?
You nailed a lot of the same sentiments that I have. I'm not exactly familiar with all of the contractual inner workings of the industry. I do imagine that Zack and Deborah Snyder have quite a bit of clout over at Warner Media just by things that have happened historically. He seems to have more influence than most directors, than many directors do. As a creator, and you just now said it as well, and I'm sure Ian will kind of echo the sentiments, it's like, it's mine. I always feel like I should be able to go back and improve my thing, right? Mm-hmm. You mentioned David Ayer. There's the Josh Trank thing with the Fantastic Four. There is a long laundry list of movies that ended up shitty because they got bad notes from the studio. The studio funded those movies, though, right? Exactly. So that's where it gets really complicated. It's like, yeah, you got dealt a crappy hand because you didn't have the $100 million that it took to go out and make that movie on your own. You look at George Lucas, one of the most prolific filmmakers of all time, one of the most beloved franchises of all time. People hated that he went back and did the McClunky thing. People hated that he made it to where Greedo shot first. People hated all of the special edition stuff where Jabba's tail got stepped on. That was George's right to do that, but it's also should be our right to go back and purchase the original copies of the original trilogy before it got all muddled and stuff. And that was one of the things that George decided when he sold off Lucasfilm to Disney is like, hey, you're not able to distribute anything pre the special editions. So that's where it gets to be a little bit more like I don't know if there's a right or wrong side. I come down on the creator side. Like, I'm on the creator side all the time, every time. But I do feel like us as fans should have the option of like, okay, maybe I do want to see the Snyder cut of Watchmen, or the extended cut of Watchmen. Maybe I want to watch the original cut of Watchmen, and I should be able to have the option to do that. Or maybe David Ayer can take the money that he's made off the other movies that he's made and go in and re-edit and reshoot and change Suicide Squad and put it out on his own. But yeah, there's a relationship and an agreement between filmmakers and the studios, and that's kind of the beginning and the end of the conversation. It's like whatever they worked out, that's just the way it is, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And like we were saying earlier, like, the way they have it worked out initially, a lot of directors don't, although they're heading up the film, they're casting people, they're putting producers in line, they have a lot of responsibility. But you have to understand that when you're making a movie for a major studio, they hardly have any say into what is going to end up in their final product. I guarantee, like, just a prime example before I pass it to Ian, when Kevin Feige got like the head of Marvel and they start doing these Marvel films, even as the latest Avengers Endgame, Kevin Feige and his team were on set every single day of production and pre-production, and they said, okay, add this, take this away, add this. That's why when you look at Russo brothers movies outside of the Avengers, they're not held to the same standard. They're not like, I was just watching Extinction and 21 Bridges. They're not as big in spectacle like the Avengers are. And you can definitely tell they had some help there. But Ian, how do you feel about directors going back to films and re-editing them to see their vision showcased on the big screen?
Well, I'm actually working on my next video, after I put this one out, I'm going to be doing a spoof about what movies we should go back to. Let's see the director's cut of it. And I'm gonna do that to a point, but I do agree that we should always give the creators their free range to an extent. I do think I would always like to see the director's vision and the writer's vision. When studios get involved too much, it does become a clusterfuck. It does. Sometimes for the better, but at the end of the day, it's never the vision that the director had, and we don't ever know what that vision is, and I would like to see that. That's why the Snyder Cut thing's interesting. I don't know how much it's going to change how good the movie was, but it's a very interesting thing, and I'm really interested in seeing how that's going to do with the future. It seems like our society is being run by popular opinion at the end of the day, so I'm interested in seeing that. I do want to touch on one thing you mentioned about Marvel movies, how the studios get involved. That was one of what's his name, Josh Whedon's problems with Avengers: Age of Ultron. He actually had a certain vision, and he felt like Marvel got involved a little bit too much. So should we be over here campaigning for the Age of Ultron Josh Whedon cut? I would love to see that, but at the same time, you know, it's in the past. Maybe we should keep it moving. But there have been directors like James Gunn and Ryan Coogler that actually said Marvel let them do whatever they wanted. They've been on a record and said they just pretty much said, hey, touch on these points like the Infinity Stone, or like so we can move on. It has to go on this train to go into the next movie. But other than that, do whatever the heck you want. So I think they learned a little bit after the Josh Whedon thing, after Age of Ultron. Like, maybe we should let the directors do a little bit more than we're making them do. So let's always campaign for that. Always campaign, whether if it's good or bad. We can only judge it after the movie, but we should always campaign for the vision of the creator.
Definitely. And I agree. We should definitely campaign for the vision of the creator. It's just that a lot of times we don't really get to see that. But thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Ask Alex. Before I send out the outro, what do you guys think about this video? Jump into the about directors going back into re-editing things. Jump into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts.